again, no path is going to be the same. Like whether you're at the academy or on AAA, that AA kid can roll in and have a growth spurt, and the light bulb kind of goes on. He's going to surpass both of you, right? And that's just the way it is. And I truly thank you for saying that. Is that our path is unique, but it still can be done. You just have to kind of buck the system a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If you can. Again, it's tough though, because for you to sit here and you played in the NHL. I never did, and there was people around us that told us we should be taking Morgan, Noah, and Connor elsewhere, and we just kind of said no, we're not. We're not ready to do that yet. So it is a different path.
That was Craig Geeky, father of Morgan Geeky of the Boston Bruins and Connor Geeky of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And you are listening to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin.
Just watch me now.
Welcome to Up My Hockey with Jason Podolin, where we deconstruct the NHL journey, discuss what it takes to make it, and have a few laughs along the way. I'm your host, Jason Podolin, a 31st overall draft pick who played 41 NHL games, but thought he was destined for 1,000. Learn from my story and those of my guests. This is a hockey podcast about reaching your potential. Hey there, welcome back to the Up My Hockey podcast with Jason Podolin. I am your host, Jason Podolin, and you are here for episode 155 with Craig Geeky. Craig Geeky happens to be a former teammate of mine in the late 90s with the Spokane Chiefs. He came over in his 20-year-old year in a trade from the Brandon Wheatcakes, where he spent his 17, 18, 19-year-old seasons with the Wheat Kings, and then came over to us as a 20-year-old. And as hockey world works, it's funny. I mean, we only played one season together, but one season is actually quite a lifetime, especially in the formative years of your late teens, early 20s. And Craig and I, not that we were hanging out all the time. It wasn't like we were the best of friends on that team, but you do spend plenty of time together in an environment like that. Bus trips in the WHL were long. 72 games is an incredible amount of time to be on the ice together. Line brawls, having each other's back, practices, this, that, and the other. You make some connections, and those connections last a long time, whether you believe it or not. And that was the case with Craig and I. Like, we went our separate ways as far as hockey was concerned. When Craig was done his WHL career, he went on to play some time in the CHL and then went and played some senior hockey in Manitoba. But we never kept in touch, or we never kept in contact. And then roughly 20, almost 30 years later, with what I was doing with Up My Hockey and with what Craig was doing as far as being a dad and raising hockey players' sons, we reconnected. And it's been fantastic being a part of his boys' journeys on that level and seeing the game through his eyes and what he's experiencing. And I actually had him on in my Facebook group, my Up My Hockey Facebook group, as an interview a few years ago, sharing some of his philosophies with that group there. And now we're going to share his philosophies here today. Hockey is a really, really fun place when it comes to that, and I'm grateful for it to keep some of these people in my life, and now I'm able to supply those people to you, the listener, and hopefully you're going to get an immense amount of value out of our conversation here today. Craig is somebody that is helping me grow the UMH 68 brand, which is my invitational event here up in Western Canada, and yeah, we're getting her going here, May 29th. We talk about the UMH 68, what it is at the end of the interview, why he got involved with me, and what it offers to the players of Manitoba and Saskatchewan this year in the 2011 birth class. So if you do have somebody in that age group and you're from that neck of the woods, I suggest you listen to the end, as this might be an event that you want to participate in. And yeah, but as far as Craig is concerned, like, hockey dad extraordinaire, him and his wife Toby, not only hockey dad, but like just small town farmer philosophy, community philosophy. Town of 150, which we talk about. All their boys grew up there, played all their minor sports there. They played everything there. Morgan was the oldest. He was a multi-sport athlete. Noah was a multi-sport athlete, and Connor was also a multi-sport athlete. All of them were great hockey players. Noah decided to take the route of being baseball and went to the collegiate route down in the States, which he is still pursuing. And for those of you who follow the NHL at all, Morgan had an absolute breakout season this year with the Boston Bruins, where he scored over 30 goals, I think 34. By the way, that's more goals than Nathan McKinnon. That's more goals than Mikko Rantanen. Like, it's crazy how many goals he scored this year at the end of his contract year. So Morgan has established himself as a very valuable NHLer and a contributor. And Connor, his youngest, was a first rounder to Phoenix, who got traded in the offseason and is now with the Tampa Bay organization. And he played his first NHL games this year and is currently with Tampa Bay for the playoff run, and was up and down in the minors. So talk about somebody that you want to hear from, as far as if you are a hockey parent, and how did they do it, and what was the route, and their some of their thinking about what they held was important, and Craig and I really align on what is important and how to pursue some of these things in the hockey world. So I was really excited to have Craig on. Very, very well spoken, very down to earth. And performance speaks for itself, right? I do believe that there's some proof in the pudding with some of these things, and if you haven't listened to the Connor Geeky interview, him as I believe a 17 or an 18-year-old, you should, because he was a super fun interview for me, and as far as 17-year-olds go, I know for anyone who has a teenage boy in their house that sometimes they're not the most wordy people or the most eloquent people, but Connor was super colorful and was great with his stories. So that's a good one to check out if you haven't listened to that one. But yeah, let's get right into it here. Without further ado, I bring you my conversation with Craig Geeky, father of Morgan, Noah, and Connor Geeky. All right, my man, welcome to the podcast, Mr. Craig Geeky.
Thanks, Pods. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, it's kind of we did this once before. So anyone who's in my Up My Hockey parent group on Facebook, there's a plug for the parent group. It's actually growing, geeks. We have like 3,000 people from all across North America now. It's pretty cool. But Craig came in like a couple years ago, and we talked some hockey, and we posted the interview in there, but never did put it on the podcast. So we're like, I was talking to Geeky earlier, and I was like, we got to get you on the podcast for real now. So this is the official entrance into the UMH community. Happy to have you, man. How are things going out there in Manitoba?
Pretty good. I feel honored to be on the podcast. That's all. It's good to finally get the nod, I guess. But no, it's good. We're full swing into kind of spring here. Hopefully, over the next course of the next few days here, supposed to get some warm weather. So yeah, I mean, other than that, hockey playoffs are in the heart of it. So I got one in, I got one out, and yeah, no, it's pretty special time, right? So
yeah,
it's fun to watch.
Yeah, I love it. My favorite time of year. You got the Jays on sometimes. You can maybe put that on in the background, and then we got the playoff hockey.
Definitely.
It's a good time to be a sports fan. And I want to talk about both your boys, of course, but I'm going to start with the Chiefs because, I mean, as the fans, the listeners of the show here would have heard in the intro that you and I played together for the Chiefs back in the day. And here they are again. Are you following the WHL playoffs at all? Like, they're on a run right now.
They are on a massive run. And kind of it started with us kind of keeping track of James Patrick, who was a big influence on Connor and his game and his approach to the game and how he plays the game. And I would say it was probably one of his most prolific changes was, under his tutelage, so to speak. So, so we kept watching, and obviously they were, I believe Victoria was touted to be kind of not cruise, I guess, but get past Spokane, and Spokane absolutely, because I think they went down the series 2-rip maybe, and then kind of battled back and really took them by storm, and now they're rolling. And again, that's the best part about playoffs. Like, I mean, you ride the wave, right? And you don't have to be the best during the season. You just got to be the best for, for the playoffs. So yeah, they've been rolling. Nice to watch.
That trade obviously is paying huge dividends with Christelle coming over. He just seems to be a bit of a magician out there, and you put
Right.
Catton and Van Home on that line, and I've never seen scores like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Right.
Like, and I actually haven't watched them play like a game. Like, I see the highlights on social media. I just don't have the time to be looking right now. But like 9 goals. They put up 10 the other night. Like, geez, like,
Yeah.
does anyone play defense anymore? Or are they just that
That's
good?
correct. Well, and that's the thing with James. He always preached, a 200-foot game. So it just speaks to the quality of these players that are putting up those kind of numbers against, to me, somebody who maybe doesn't take away the defense. Like, he's not preaching offense, but he's a 200-foot game guy. And, if you're not playing the right way, then you're not playing. So obviously they're, doing very well against a well-coached team for sure.
Yeah, that's wild. I'm going to give you, just because it's my damn show and I'm allowed to talk about me every once in a while. It's kind of funny. I don't know if the Chiefs are watching, because obviously for me, I know more than, I'm probably closer to it than anybody else, but Catton and Crystal right now, as we speak, are tied with me for the most points in a playoff season by a Spokane
Already?
Chief. Yeah,
Right,
so they have
already.
33. So like that record's long gone. But like, isn't that crazy? Like, that was 29 years ago, buddy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
nuts.
tell me about it. I mean, my wife and I talk about it, not all the time, but I mean, a couple times a year. It's crazy that, you and I have reconnected, or Huey and I have reconnected, right? And
Yeah.
it's literally 30 years ago. And again, it just speaks volumes to what hockey is more about than the game itself, right? And we all end up in beer league, and I still say that is the prolific sentence that I always tell kids, that we all end up in beer league. Your path might be different, right? You might be in the NHL, but you might be tier 2. You might go straight from AAA to beer league. At the end of the day, the people you meet and your teammates is literally why everybody plays the game, and that's the truth, right? Yeah. So to reconnect with you has been phenomenal. Huey, and again, I got Marty Murray on. That's he came back home, and lots of other guys that you just throw a text. I was just talking to Chris Lowe. You would have played against Losey.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to think how many paths we cross throughout our career, and no matter how long or how short, it's pretty amazing to have the profile in your phone of how many kids that you played with or against. So
yeah, no, I agree. It is one of the best parts. I mean, that's the part that stays with you forever. I mean, we remember some of the big games. I know I do. I mean, some of the big goals, those definitely go, but like, it is the people and it's the connections. And that's the part when you're in the moment. If we can recognize that in the moment, one of the things that I try and do with players is to get them in touch with that. Like, that's the juice, right? And like,
right.
And not that we're trying to do this and architect some type of how do I put this? Like, we're not trying to be self-serving in our approach to that, right? Like, how does this benefit me? But it does benefit you, right? Yeah. Like, you making connections with people, earning trust, value, they respect you and your work ethic and your approach and all these things, right? Like, they want to do things with you after, or for you for that matter, after, right? Like, it just helps. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the cool things that I always tried to tell my players, you don't have to love each other. You have to respect each other, being on the same team. But further than that, like, you might be going through a town and all of a sudden you got a flat tire. Well, you got so-and-so, I got Podsy's name in Vernon, BC. Well, I'm just outside of Vernon. Like, hey, Pods, can you, like, is there any way that, you can get in touch? So it's so much deeper than what people actually, look at when they're going through it, including myself, like 100% including myself. Like, I was not good when it came to that stuff. And the further I got away from it, the more I cherished it, back then. Right. And I understood, okay, geez, I should have spent more time. But I will say this, like, and this is kind of veering off a little bit, but, billets. I still stay in touch with John and Carrie in Spokane, who were truly just amazing people, and still stay in touch. Special occasions, we share photos back and forth and stuff like that. And when Connor was in Wenatchee, we actually got him out to Wenatchee to watch Connor. And obviously when we went to Spokane, they were there too. So again, there's just so much more to the game than the game itself. And again, you're bang on. You don't really appreciate it when you're going through it, but if you can stop and kind of smell the roses a little bit, it'll make the other stuff look so small, right? And again, you and I both would have argued that, when we're in it, if you're 17, 18, 19-year-old self, you would say, oh, come on, geeks, like seriously? But that's the truth, right? But I also never had anybody go through it, right? I don't know about yourself, but I was never close enough to anybody that had, and this is kind of, ever expanding why we're on this podcast, but that's part of the mental aspect. If you can just step away for a little bit and enjoy your billets and enjoy your friendships that, away from the game actually becomes a lot easier because you're not thinking about it 24/7, right? And that's where you come in with your mindset stuff and, the ability to kind of have an escape. And I believe that's kind of what, I think sets kids apart is the ability to do that on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. No, I love that segue. I mean, that I just got off a call with, I'm working with an AJHL guy right now on my guided mission. And what we were talking about, is just the concept of gratitude, and gratitude is nothing new, right? I mean, it's biblical, right? Do unto others, doing to you almost, right? It's in the same framework. But the idea is like there's a performance aspect to that. And so you're talking about your billets, and we're talking about, people around the game, whether it be your teammates or maybe the trainers or the coaches or whoever. If we have the ability or the skill, as I call it, like the mental fitness skill, to be able to invest in those people, right? Like that we are participating in those relationships. Our focus then is forced outside of our own head. Right. And 90% of the athletes that have an issue with performance get inside their own head, right? It's about what I'm doing wrong. It's about what I need to do. It's the comparison game. It's this, it's that, it's the other. But if we focus outside, and if we want to celebrate other people, and that's where the gratitude comes in, right? Like, how is this teammate being of value to me, to us as a group, right? Like, how can I celebrate their success?
Right.
Like, now we start going outward. Our energy goes outward instead of inward. And again, that's a high performance freaking tool, right? Yeah. And what are you doing in the meantime? You're also developing relationships and networking, and you're doing all these other good things. So it's kind of funny how I like how you can layer on the benefits of some of this stuff, right? And I do believe, well, I don't believe, I know it is a choice. Some people are more naturally have a higher aptitude for it, let's say, than others. Like you yourself said, I wasn't good at it. But if you were presented with the right context at the right time, you could have made different decisions in the moment, right? Totally. To change.
Yeah. And again, you played with me. I was an intense guy, right? To a fault. I never learned how to let that go until after junior. And, we went to the Allen Cup. I played 7 games or 10 games down in, the Central League, I think at the time. Well, I just went down there with just a kind of a carefree attitude. I'm gonna enjoy the moment. Well, I played my best hockey, and that's kind of when it kind of flipped the switch. And then, obviously started having kids and whatnot, and ultimately kind of said, okay, this isn't, hockey doesn't define you, whether you make it or not. It doesn't define you, and that's, and that's where Toby and I really just kind of started saying that. Just like you said, Pods, is that enjoy other people's success. Like, enjoy your teammates' success. Celebrate that goal like it's your goal, because it is your goal. You're part of a group. So, it's different if you're playing, singles tennis or singles badminton or, but even in baseball, like, our kids played really high levels of baseball. Well, to me, that's a very tough sport. That's a sport of failure. Right. If you ask anybody, a teacher or somebody that you know what, if I could bat or do something at 333%, you know, that's a failure. You're going to be in Cooperstown. Like if you do that for the rest of your life and bat 333, like who wants 33%? Well, I'd take it in a heartbeat in baseball.
Yeah.
Well, those are things that to me you have to overcome and say, no, I'm okay with going 1 for 4, right? Because I batted 2 runs in, you know, or something. And those are things to me that those other sports, you know, what you do when you're up my hockey and all that stuff, you branch those kids out into whether it be lacrosse, whether it be football, you're playing flag football, I see. And, you know, there's so many different aspects you can go with it. But I truly feel that, you know, the mental side of life in the game has grown so much that we need to spread the word, basically. Yeah. And that's what you're doing.
Well, I mean, I'm trying, and the conversations matter, and I think the awareness is just the first part, you know, and
right.
I didn't feel I was unintelligent while I played. It's nothing to do with intelligence. It just has everything to do with like perspective, right? And that was like that was what the call was about today with the guy I was talking with. I'm like, if we can develop your ability to see things differently, it's going to give you an opportunity to make a different choice and to show up in a way that's going to allow you to have the best success that you can. Right? Because we all have these blinders. So like if we can take those blinders off and then have some new pathways, some new decisions where we can participate in an empowered way in our own development, I mean, that's a big difference. That's a huge difference. Right?
And that's again, I know it's cliche. That's not just hockey.
No,
I do the same thing here at my work. Because I mean, every challenge that is, you know, in front of me has to have a different perspective, right? Because it's a different customer, it's a different client, it's a different scenario. He or she is buying something, you know, that is really important to them, whether it's a lawnmower, whether it's $1 million combine, you know. So those things have to be thought, you know, in a different process. And again, just like you said, it's perspective. And so for me, I'm, like you said, that's why I loved kind of what you're about. So.
Well, thank you for that. I will shift gears though, and I want to talk about. You mentioned Patrick already, James Patrick, and I know that he had an influence. And again, as we're having these conversations, I know we're gonna end up talking about the UMH 68, but there's so many connections and like bridges that get built to that of why we're both kind of passionate about what the UMH 68 is. One is the impact of like coaches and the exposure to different coaches and what they maybe see in you and what they want you to do or could be. Like that couple things here and there can be groundbreaking for a player. So let's talk about James Patrick. You said that had quite a bit of influence on Connor. Let's talk about in what way and in how that impact was able to be received too from Connor from a player perspective.
And again, I don't want to speak for Connor, and I think I'm correct when I'm saying this, but just the accountability. I mean, I could say the same thing. We could come after a game, and again, one of my questions, we rarely talked hockey once it was done, but I would always ask the question, how did it go? And I still text Morgan and Noah, my ball player, and Connor, the same thing. How'd it go? Well, again, touching on your perspective deal, if you can't be objective on your own game, I'm sorry, you're probably not going to be as successful as you hoped you were. So if you can say and pick pieces out and say, you know what, I struggled today. It felt like the game was going 1,000 miles an hour and I was in quicksand, you know, or, you know, felt really great today, but couldn't handle the puck, you know, or something. But just the accountability that James had on Connor, that it was earned. Like all his ice was always earned. And to me, being a young kid, you know, in the Western League as you were, I wasn't that good. At the end of the day, it's a 17-year-old rookie league is what it is. That's the league. It's not 16. You're blessed to be able to play at 16. I know there's complete exceptions, excuse me, like Bedard and some of these other kids, you know, I forget the young guy in, yes, those are outliers. Those are not, and being 16 to play in that league is crazy to me. I was 17 and I grinded it out. So my point is that he had to earn everything. And once he started understanding that, okay, he's not hard on me because he's hard on me. He's hard on me because he sees potential, right? He's hard on me because, he tells you maybe not all the time the good things, but he also tells you how to correct it and when you do a good job correcting it. So I think out of that, my kids to me have a above average work ethic. So that helped them along the way. But I think the accountability was the biggest thing, Pods, that, he just held them in check. Like there was, whether it be practice, Connor was always a hard practice player. Like he practiced hard because, that's the way I was. And, and James loved that. So, that emotion and everything kind of carried over and they kind of had a bond that way. And then, the rest is kind of, I guess, history, so to speak. But they still talk to each other today, probably once a month.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, accountability is big, and a lot of times, very oftentimes, even as adults, like we do need somebody to keep us accountable, because we as diligent as we can be with that, right? Like we all do have our blinders, and however great we believe our self-assessment abilities to be, it's nice to have somebody there that we respect, that we're going to listen to. And that's why I kind of framed that question as I did, is because sometimes athletes don't want to hear it. Maybe they don't want to hear it from a personality perspective. Like maybe they're not mentally, have the mental skills required to accept it, or they haven't built the trust required to hear it properly, right? To know what the intentions are.
Right.
Did James go about building that in your, like, do you remember in any way, shape or form? Or was it just more of a player coach? And that sometimes that's enough, right? Player coach relationship. And, that's the standard.
Yeah. The only thing that I can honestly think of is just, even after practice, during practice, I would say it's still player coach. There was nothing, extraordinary about it. I think it was just, the belief system that, Toby and I tried to instill in Connor that, he is your coach. He coached at the National Hockey League for years. He played, right? And so he knows what he's doing. A lot of times, and again, this is going to maybe come across as arrogant too, but the same principles he had is what I had. It was just a different voice, right? And so the instill factor, I think, really, was better coming from him than it was from Dad. But no, nothing out of the ordinary for that matter. But to touch on one thing, though, I don't think anybody likes getting held accountable, right? I mean, I think it's in our human nature to say, and I'm good, and you get into a comfort zone, right? Whether it's, I don't know, working out. Like, do you feel like working out every day? No, you don't, right? You need somebody to hold you accountable or something to hold you accountable. So again, the more you can be objective and listen to that accountability come forward. Again, on the flip side, the other thing too is to be able to filter that accountability, because sometimes there's some blinders too on the person giving you accountability too. Yeah. Well, you weren't doing this. Well, again, that as a coach, coaches get blinders too, right? Yeah. They see certain things, and sometimes you just got to be objective and hold pat on what you believe and change some other things along the way too. Yeah. So
I love you bringing that up, and I think that there's a lot of parents in the same boat as you, and I hear that all the time, right? Like, so what I talk about with teams, or what I talk about with players, or even some of the the pillars of what my program is. This is not new age, fresh out of the box stuff that I've created. Like it's a lot of it's tenets that families have within their families, right? Like it's stuff that mom and dad have been trying to say or do say. And all of a sudden they're like, but now they're doing it, or now they finally listened, or whatever the case may be. And to me, like, that's a celebration, because we're all mom and dad have a filter on what they're saying, and kids receive things differently. So if the message comes through clear just because the messenger is somewhat different, or they're saying it a little bit differently, who cares, right? Like, that's awesome, right? So that's great. And I'm glad you say that, because I do get that. And I'm like, well, high five to you, mom and dad, because you're saying the right thing, and it's great that now we're rocking it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think the other thing I'm going to add on there is just from the trust standpoint, and I'm not sure if this is right or wrong, but I think when players hear the idea that when I am hard on you, or when I am holding you accountable, it's because of this reason.
Right.
Right. Like, it's not because I don't like you or I don't like your game. It's actually because I do see potential in you that you don't see, and I want you to be the best you can be.
Correct. And I
think that's like, that changes it, right? Because I think that you don't feel it the same way if you believe that statement's true, right?
Right. Yeah. And one other person, I'll give him a plug. He doesn't get much recognition. And Connor will say this, is Mark Watton. Mark Watton coached him. And he was actually alongside me through Connor's U15 and U18, years. And, Waddy was, what was he, 17-year pro, and he was your absolutely perfect pro. He knew when to coddle you. He knew when to say good job, but he also knew when to break a stick and say you can't lollygag back here, or again, and you'll see this, but I can remember this to a T, was Connor was just lazily getting back on a change, right? He knows he's changing. Well, meanwhile, the puck gets turned over. Well, he still lollygags back to the bench, right? And Waddy was, livid. Well, again, it's such a small thing. It's a change, and there was no goal on it. There was no nothing. Right. It was just the fact that, you have to change. If you don't have enough energy to change hard and come hard to the bench, then you're on the ice too long. Right. Or something of that nature. So, and again, Mark Watton was a big influence. And again, him and James had a lot of similar characteristics. Right. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm going to take a short break from my conversation with Craig Geeky to talk about the UMH 68, because that's what this has been inspired. This interview is our event, our Western Canadian event here, that is going to be launching May 29th in Brandon, Manitoba at the Keystone Center, home of the Brandon Wheat Kings, and close proximity to Craig Geeky. We are hoping, cross our fingers, to have a special guest appearance from Morgan, his oldest son, that's going to be in attendance. And we are hosting, for the first time in Manitoba, a UMH 68 Invitational that will be delivered to 2011 born players from Manitoba or Saskatchewan. There are some challenges, of course, right? Launching a new event to new people in a new area that haven't heard of what it's all about, maybe aren't as familiar with Up My Hockey, maybe already had their spring program set. And so there's lots of hurdles, and one of the hurdles is getting the right players there, getting the word out, and having the access to the parents so we can even give people the invitation. So the idea of the UMH 68, if you haven't heard of it, is to deliver a best on best experience that goes well beyond hockey into the field of personal development and how, all the areas of being a great hockey player, which has some pillars in how to be a great human. So we talk about that there. We make connections with people from outside of your normal geographic region. You're placed on teams with new coaches, experienced coaches that are going to provide you valuable insight on your game during your time there. There's lots of swag. There's lots of fun stuff like that. We treat them like professionals. The dressing rooms are set up as close to junior scenario as you'll ever have, maybe even better than some junior facilities. And it really is an event. In the case of the 2011s, it's also an event that does get attention from WHL scouts. There is a showcase aspect to it. as that is their first opportunity to see the upcoming draft class, because the WHL draft is over at that point, and now they're focusing on the next year. So there is an exposure element to this as well. And if you want to be a part of the UMH 68, and if you are a 2011 born player that has the credentials required to attend, remember, you should be playing competitive hockey, high competitive hockey, whatever your area is. Generally speaking, this is for AAA players. I know in Saskatchewan there's only the AA level, but if you're playing AA as a first year there, that is a great statement to say, yes, I belong. If you were exceedingly doing well at the A level as a first year, that is also an indication to say, hey, I think I belong to be there. So by all means, if you are somebody that thinks they should be there, if you are a coach of somebody who thinks you have a player that should be there, if you are an aunt or an uncle or a manager or a hockey director, it doesn't matter where it comes from. By all means, please put the name forward. We are finalizing the rosters for the 2011 event, and I would love to get to the 68 that we set out to do. That is, to do that, you go to the Up My Hockey website, upmyhockey.com, and you also fill out the watch list for the according event. We are full in British Columbia for the U14 for the 2012s. We do have some space for the 2011. So if you are in British Columbia, you are a 2011 player, and you would like to come to Vernon, by all means, get on the watch list, put in your credentials, put in your resume, and we will do some homework on you, and you might receive an invitation to the event. Same holds true for Martinsville in Saskatchewan. We are hosting a U14 event there for 2011 born players from Saskatchewan or Alberta. We only need defensemen for that event. We're looking for a last few quality defensemen to round out the rosters there. So if you have a defenseman in either one of those provinces, by all means, fill out the watch list form at upmyhockey.com. We would love to have you. These events have been wildly successful in British Columbia, and this is the first time we're venturing outside of it, and are looking for the support from the hockey community to make it what it has been in the past. So thanks so much for listening. Now let's get back to the podcast with Craig Geeky. Let's get back to raising these three young men that you have. You already mentioned. Sorry, what's your oldest name?
Noah. Oh, Morgan.
Noah, right. So Noah's the ball player, but he was also a hell of a hockey player too. And just to share where they were drafted in the WHL and a little bit about their upbringing, because small town you were at, and how the whole sports system worked there, and what your philosophy was with your wife Toby.
So yeah, three boys. Morgan's the oldest. Noah's the middle boy, and Connor's obviously the youngest. And a town of 150 people. It's very tough to explain. There's a school K to 12. It's one hallway, right? And there's a grocery store and a hardware store, and the rest is literally, what I would consider, when those kids are growing up, they're all family, because it takes a community to raise a family, and that's what we had. So with that said, you couldn't play sports without everybody playing sports, right? Because there's just not enough people. And so we did everything. And again, when I say this, like I said, a lot of things have changed, and I know your listeners are gonna, probably roll their eyes kind of when I say this, but it is something that I believe was very imperative for their growth, which was, we played every sport. I'm talking badminton, curling, basketball, volleyball. They did all the track, baseball, hockey, everything. And part of that reason we could do that, though, was because we're in a small community. But I mean, I can remember paying, I believe I was president of minor ball and minor hockey at the time, and we were paying $50 for all our kids to play, $25 to play baseball. We'd give $5 for badminton, and that's not that long ago. Right. So, right. Again, we couldn't have done this with, in a larger center, in different demographics. We couldn't have done it, and we could have done it without the help of Toby's mom and dad. Toby's mom and dad were impeccable grandparents, right? They just, anything we needed, they would just pick them up and take them, right? So when I tell people that I want them, playing other sports, that's why. I think it develops so many more skills unknowingly, but it's very tough in today's society though, with, in the larger centers, what you're in, but you're trying to do that on the UMH side and the compete side. But to me, that is one of the biggest changes that I've seen since they've kind of come out, because we had to really toe our own rope. We would say no to so many things, whether it be, a baseball tournament or a hockey tournament or something, because it was more involved than we wanted to be.
Right.
Once they got to kind of that certain age, then we said, okay, let's start channeling a little bit, but we never gave it all up. Like Morgan missed, he went for volleyball provincials in the middle of the season for, in AAA. The rest of the kids did the same. Connor actually went to curling provincials. Noah went to basketball provincials. So there's all that sort of stuff that we just believed in.
Yeah.
With all that said, again, I also know that without the three of them competing at home, right, when they weren't doing stuff, they were always outside. They were always either at the rink or on the ball diamond or at, we have a pretty big lot in our yard. So they were always doing something. So they were the three that held each other accountable, if you know what I mean. Like, and again, your three boys are probably very similar, right? Anything they do, it's a competition. There's a lot of chirping and, you monitor that and you go through all that. And that's where life lessons come in. That's where, parenting comes in and stuff like that. But, at the end of the day, we're pretty thankful. I mean, you want to talk about gratitude. Like, we have so many people to thank throughout our small communities that, help these kids, I don't know, stay at the rink late to do the ice, so many different things, right? Like, I mean, all our kids had the same baseball coach. I was always the assistant and had the same baseball coach. He still stays in touch with them today. Like, he's a really good friend of mine. Well, Derek took them to nationals. They took them to Western Canadians, like all three of them. And so just, again, those experiences alone, again, are to me just imperative, when they're growing up.
No, yeah. And I love that. And I want to put a little color on that because I do know a little bit more of the backstory and just to shine a light for some of the people here. Like, so you talked about it at a certain age, then they had to commit. But let's talk about like what was that age, first of all. And before that, you would say that, yeah, like essentially the baseball team was the hockey team, right? Like, and was the whatever team, right? And so you'd have Sally and Johnny and Jimmy and like boys and girls just to even produce a team. So you had like dramatically different skill sets on the same field or on the same ice.
Right. Yeah. And again, I'm so old school. And again, I know your listeners are again probably going to roll their eyes, but there's nothing wrong with playing, with kids that are less skilled, because you have to learn how to. And again, I know we just touched on this, but be excited for how good they do, right? Be excited that, they scored their first goal or made a great pass, or be excited for that, because it takes away from, the individualness of what's happening. You can't get frustrated because, little Johnny or little Sally can't move the puck. Well, they could probably touch the puck back to you and use a give and go. So talk to them about that, right? And all my kids were pretty much growing up, were almost 50-50 girls. Connor had the worst one, and not the worst one. God, that sounded bad, but the worst, the wrong
ratio of boys to girls.
Yeah, he was 3 boys to 7 girls, all the way till Pee Wee, and they did so well. Like, those girls still amaze me today. We still stay in touch. I mean, you can challenge your kids. And yes, I was the coach, but you can challenge those kids to, learn how to play with those players, right? And because not everybody's going to have the same skill set. Some are going to be better, right, down the line, whether it's, junior whatever. But some are also going to be worse. So talk to them as a teammate and say, hey, can you go here? Or when you get here, and all sorts of things. And I think that helped a ton too. And, again, these small towns, we'd always have players want to try hockey for the first time at, U9 or U11. Well, again, there's a whole different dynamic, right? Because this person can't even skate, right? So you're using that person to, try and get better, whether it's during the game or on the ice or at practices or whatever. So it's I'm old school in that regard, is that you want to play with the best players. It's probably the fastest way to get there. But I think there's an opportunity that, just because you're playing with a AA player versus a AAA player, I think there's opportunity there. I truly do. And that's not the mindset of today. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's the norm. I'm just saying that's what we had to do in our small community.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's opportunity there even if that's all anyone takes away from this, is that it is possible and it can happen, because there is room for growth in those environments. Yeah. And like what pick was Morgan in the draft at WHL?
He was fifth round.
Fifth round. Okay, so fifth round. Connor was what?
Oh, Connor was second overall.
Second overall, yeah. And then what was your middle guy?
Noah was third.
Right. Overall or third round?
No, he was third round.
Okay, so a fifth rounder, a third rounder, and second overall from an environment that had 7 girls to 3 boy ratio for the majority of his sports career, right? Like exactly. Playing all these different sports, not in a high octane, a high performance environment. Not saying that this is I'm not saying that this is the path that everyone should be seeking, but the thing is like, it is still a path. Like there's a pathway that exists there, right?
Yeah. And thank you for saying that. Cause again, I'm a little bit jaded. Like the landscapes change, and I get that it changes daily or annually or whatever. And, being on the ice all the time is still not, I think it's quite proven that it's still not the best for these kids. So, to see what you're doing in the, flag football and playing lacrosse and stuff like that, well, that is still better than being on the ice, right? And again, no path is going to be the same. Like whether you're at the academy or on AAA, that AA kid can roll in and have a growth spurt, and the light bulb kind of goes on. He's going to surpass both of you, right? And that's just the way it is. And I truly, truly thank you for saying that. Is that our path is unique, but it still can be done. You just have to kind of buck the system a little bit, right? Yeah. If you can. Again, it's tough though, because for you to sit here and you played in the NHL. I never did, and there was people around us that told us we should be taking Morgan, Noah, and Connor elsewhere, and we just kind of said no, we're not. We're not ready to do that yet. So it is a different path.
Yeah. When did you shift gears with them? And again, Noah ended up going the baseball route, and again, by all accounts, a hell of a hockey player, and the other two stuck with hockey. But when was that shift from a family as being, okay, like we got to be a little bit, or not even, maybe there was a conscious choice, maybe the boys kind of chose it. Like, I don't know how that worked, but when did that happen?
Correct. Great call. I would say the boys really migrated to their own love of the game, right? They continued, like Connor would still be playing, and Morgan for that matter. If it wasn't really based in their contract, they'd be playing ball still today in the off season. They love the sport. They actually Morgan and Connor actually bought brand new gloves. I'm not joking. Like last week, they bought brand new gloves. They worked them in together, and so Morgan actually went to Tampa to watch Connor take their daughter and to Disney World, but they threw the ball together right outside. So when was that? I would say probably in that 17-year-old, 16, 17 on the later side, right?
Wow. That was way later than I thought you were going to say.
Yep. 100%. No. And because like I said, we still did everything. We still, and I still am a big believer in if you have the right coaches that are willing to do that and try and make it work, you're only going to miss, maybe half dozen practices and maybe a game or two, because of provincials. But again, if you get a chance to go to volleyball provincials or basketball provincials or curling provincials, versus a regular season game, I'm going to tell you to go to the provincial because it's an experience. There's way more pressure there, right, at a provincial format than there is, in a regular season game. So what you're gaining from that experience trumps, playing a regular season game. Is that the norm? No, you have to buck the system and kind of say, no, we're gonna take them there. So it was probably in that, like I said, in that 17 range. Morgan actually never, when he got drafted, and I know I've told you this story, but we had to call Tri-Cities and tell him he wasn't going. And he actually had a chance to go to baseball nationals, as for representing his team. And we chose that hands down, to go to a training camp that he probably wasn't going to make it, which he wasn't, to go play a national event, and he ended up, just tearing it up. Like he ended up with the batting average and MVP and right. And then came home and said, you know what, I'm choosing hockey, and that was at 16. So in his 17-year-old year, he went for his first time in Tri-Cities, and Bob was, again, you kind of think that, to me, you don't know how people are going to react to that, right? Because it's no different than you and me having kids say no to our expansion into Manitoba here. Well, no, I don't, we're not coming. Well, of course I want you to come. But when we talked to Bob on the phone there, he was ecstatic and completely was 100% on board with us choosing a national baseball championship. So, again, when you can kind of get those people and that's why, that's why Morgan had such good success in Tri-Cities. To me, it was because of Bob, right? Because of the culture there, right? It's bigger than hockey, right? So, but yeah, I would say ultimately that it's right around that 16, 17 is when we chose.
That's really cool. What did sticking with Morgan? So 5th rounder to the WHL. Where did he get drafted to in the NHL draft?
Be 3rd round, 67. Is that about right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So already kind of peaking, late bloomer, however you want to call it, right?
Totally.
I love that because for anyone who hasn't done it, like obviously I'm more involved than probably the average listener here. But if you look at a WHL draft, and from the WHL draft, who plays in the NHL from that draft, like it's actually quite an interesting experiment to look. Yeah. Like the first rounders, yes, higher percentage, and then it falls off fast.
Drastically.
It's crazy. Yeah. Like a second rounder, like you were talking like in WHL scenario, right? Like you're 20th overall, you're deemed the second best 14-year-old in all of Western Canada, the hockey hotbed of frickin', the world. And very few play, right? Like, and so for a 5th rounder from the WHL to just have scored 34 goals or whatever the heck Morgan just did at the WHL and be the 30th best goal scorer in the NHL is like, I love stories like that. Like that's so cool. And I think it speaks to, for me, about the idea of if we just fall in love from a mindset side of like the process of development. And I mean, you're talking about a holistic athlete is essentially what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't like the goal wasn't to make, Morgan a 30-goal NHL scorer at the start. It was just that the philosophy of the more exposure, the better as a human, right? Like go do stuff, do as much stuff as you can. And then once you find out what you're good at and what you want to do, that's going to help you in your long-term road to be successful in whatever. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
And thank you for saying that, and again, this is where I've always been somewhat shy or neglect to kind of really say this, but because nobody believes you, right? But we never talked about the drafts. We never talked about hockey being like we just it was when you said just be better in life, right? That's honestly what it was about. Like do as much as you can, and whatever you decide to do, even if you just decide to be a plumber. Well, all that sports and all those, disciplines that you needed to excel at those sports is going to help you as a plumber. Like it truly will. Like, I'm a sales manager now. Well, it helps me immensely deal with different problems. Well, that's all we kept talking about. And again, leading up to the draft, we never talked about the draft. We would talk about, yes, we knew the draft was coming, but we would talk about how to handle people coming up to you and how to speak about the draft, right? They already knew that the draft was coming, right? So we didn't have to talk about it. But when you entered our house, clean up your mess, do the dishes, right? Seriously, clean the table, clean the shoes away from the door, stuff like that. That's what we talked about. And I mean, still to this day, you walk in our house, there's only 1 or 2 pictures. There's not big, but everything's still in the closet. All their jerseys, like was bats and all his jerseys from college and all that stuff. Again, you're still you're still Craig and Toby's boy, and that's it. So again, I really appreciate the word that you use. I mean, a holistic athlete, holistic, person just trying to better themselves. And it's just, I know it's different timing though. Like it's
yeah.
Again, I keep using the word, but the landscape is so changed. We've got so, engulfed in the game that sometimes it does get clouded.
Yeah. Well, but I do think that the conversation is relevant more now than ever, though, because I do think that there is a perception that you have to do it this certain way because that's the best way, and I'm still a firm believer that it's not the best way. I don't care if everyone else is doing it.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of science now about even, like the injuries and this and the things that are happening outside of the game or at the NHL level now. And again, I wanted to say that about what the goal was too, because if the goal, and I say that to my boys right now, because I know Hudson wants to be an NHL, like that's all he wants to do. And that's all he's wanted to do.
Right.
But I'm like, if that goal in of itself, if that is the reason why you're playing, like you honestly are in a tough spot.
Right. Yeah. And you're bang on is that there was really never a goal per se. We just wanted a work ethic, a time management, I don't know, a teammate philosophy, in everything. And again, not to downplay it, but Toby was such an integral factor there that, she was always the really competitive one. And I know this is, everybody's going to, again, roll their eyes here. I was always the one that, would kind of sit back a little bit, but Toby was as intense as everybody. We just had to kind of say to each other, okay, like, let's tone it down a bit. Like, this isn't the end all be all here. So, and again, I'm not downplaying it where we just kind of said, okay, here it is. No, we're as competitive as anybody. But, just like you said, the ability to not do the norm is very tough though. Like, I mean, to me, the average person to buck the system, it's very hard, right? Because you feel like you're being left out, right? You feel like you're missing something. And, we see that a lot, to me, in Manitoba, because, there's nowhere near as much opportunity as there is in BC, just for sheer demographics, sheer numbers, right? So when there is something good, right, or somebody believes in something, everybody kind of follows, right? Which is good and bad in a way. But for people to make their own choices and say, you know what, we're not doing that, very, very tough to do for people.
Another quick stop to the show to say Elite Prospects has wanted to get involved with Up My Hockey, and they are with the UMH 68 Invitational. We have set up a Elite Prospect sponsorship where every player attending the UMH 68 will receive a verified profile done by Elite Prospects. The verified profile can be well, I don't want to say cumbersome, but there's some work involved in verifying your profile. If you come to the UMH 68, this will be done for you by the great people at Elite Prospects. That is one perk of coming to our event. The second perk is that everything you do there will be tracked. Not only tracked properly by Elite, but it's tracked properly by us. I take goals, assists, primary assists, and secondary assists very seriously. I take shots on goal for goaltenders very seriously. Their goals against average is important. And everything is done with video, and it is accurate at a UMH 68 invitational event. So if you deserve an assist, you will get it. We take pride in that. And those points, however many you get, or however many you don't get, will be on your Elite Prospects profile. Elite Prospects is covering every UMH 68 event, and this is a pretty prestigious honor for the UMH 68 Invitational, as Elite Prospects only works with very high caliber, very high class tournaments. They cover tournaments like the John Reed Invitational, like the Brick Invitational, and they are now covering the UMH 68 Invitational. So all of your stats will be on there, and if you happen to be one of the best at the event and you win a UMH 68 All-Star Award, that will also be on your hockey profile for the rest of your life, that you won an All-Star at a UMH 68 event. Those All-Star Awards are powered by Elite Prospects. You will receive an Elite Prospects hat as well when it comes to that. So lots of good stuff happening. And for one special event, one of my U15 events, Elite Prospects is going to bring a scout out there to write evaluation reports on the players and to share them on their social media. And it will also be added to their profiles. So super exciting stuff with Elite Prospects. I couldn't be happier working with them. Cam Robinson is a former guest of the show. He does great work for Elite Prospects. The people behind the scenes at Elite Prospects have been great to deal with, and really excited that they see the exact same opportunity with the UMH 68 Invitational as I do, and want to grow with the event. So if you are looking for any other reason or any more reasons to get involved with the UMH 68 Invitational, hopefully Elite Prospects is a big part of your decision-making process. Now let's get back to the conversation with Craig Geeky. I never really fully have communicated, I don't think, like what my philosophy is, like when it comes to it all. And I think maybe this would be a good time. I'm not going to get super deep, but like, it's hard doing what I do from a hockey perspective, like an on the ground hockey perspective, because for instance, I don't do anything in July.
Right.
I'm a hockey skills coach that does hockey programming for people. And there's a lot of people that want to do stuff in July. For the age group that I work with, I've stuck in my lane and stayed with, the youth people. I don't think anybody should be on the ice in July.
Right.
So because of that, I don't offer programs.
Right.
Now that's how I also pay my bills.
Right.
Right. You see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really like, for me to be have some integrity in what I do, I feel at least that I need to offer what I believe in. And so when I do a program, it's not around the idea of, hey, how do I extract the most money from the community? The first thing is what is best for the athlete.
Right. Yeah.
Like, period. And so I believe in like 3 sessions a week for the most part. I believe in a skills session. I believe in a compete day. I believe in having fun and having like a games day involved in that. I believe in understanding the physical dynamics of movement and having that being a part of your training. As you've talked about, I believe that you should be doing other sports. And a lot of times players aren't able to do that because of this day and age, just with how committed you need to be to something. So one of my facilities is the academy, where we do sports throughout the year around hockey, where I bring in other coaches and they learn how to play other sports.
Right.
So like all of those things on top of each other is my way of like supplying my philosophy to kids that aren't my kids. Right.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is the way, whether you're a high performer or whether you're a house leaguer, if you want to get better at the sport of hockey, I think this is the best way that we can do that. Right. And the other part of that, the extension, was the UMH 68, which is what, you're working with me on now out in Manitoba. And yes, this is an extracurricular event, right? It is an event after the season is over. It is an event at the tail end of spring hockey. The good thing about how my thought about this was okay. My spring program myself, so I guess this is relevant. I have a non-weekend model. That's important to me too. Okay. So I think that unless we're going to a tournament, we're not going to be in hockey arenas.
Right.
I want kids to be able to go throw the football around. I want them to go to the lake. I want them to play golf. Right. I want them to do these things. I want to go on family camping trips. That's
Right.
programmed in. We could be doing exhibition games. I'm talking AAA teams that I'd coach, right? But I'm like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to go during the week. We're doing our 3 days. We're going to go to our tournaments. We're going to try and kick ass there. But if we have a free weekend, you choose what you want to do with it. You want to pick up your own ice time, go ahead. But it's not going to be with me. Okay. So through that, and I also think that, okay, then we should end. I believe that it should end around mid-May, end of June. Like that's when I think the traditional spring season should end. And because for my own kids, they've always been off the ice essentially all of June and pretty much all of July. I think like 6 week minimum is kind of how I've done. Right. Really, I'd like to have more, but at least for me, I'm like, okay, I feel comfortable with that 6 weeks. So at the end of that spring season, I'm like, I think this UMH 68 event is fantastic because we can bring people together. To your point, the networking side of it, not people that you're with all the time, right? Not people that you've been accustomed to your whole life, but new people from new geographic regions, from different leagues, from different family styles and everything else, different coaches, right? Different accomplished coaches that are going to believe in you and buy into you. And we're going to give you the skills required to be the best that you can be from an off-ice perspective when it comes to the mental aspect or if it comes to the training aspect and the physical aspect. So like for me, it was like the UMH 68 was like, okay, this is kind of the culmination of everything that I believe in that hockey can be, you know, and it can be this development tool for athletes. So that was definitely not planned, that I just went into my whole philosophy about how to supply an environment. But maybe you can talk to just your side of it, of like what drew you, because it sounds like we definitely have like similar ideologies. And you wanted to be involved in the 68. Now you're running the event for me in Manitoba. Like, is that what sort of brought you into the ecosystem?
Totally, Pods. I think, again, when you end up kind of clicking with somebody, you know, based on philosophies and ideas, you know, it's not only the start of it. I think it breeds more than that, right? Because when you're thinking the same, right, the challenges throughout our, you know, planning of this, you know, always seems to be on the same path, right? So it becomes a little bit easier. But why I joined, to me, I was never a big showcase guy. I still honestly believe that the right people will see the right things at some point. If you're good enough, they will find you. And I truly believe that. But what I do enjoy about your philosophy is that you're bringing different people together. And again, you don't have to have, you know, even though you don't have to have, you know, that top end AAA guy there. We're going to have some, you know, some really, really good high end AA guys, right? That maybe didn't make it because just sheer numbers, right? Which is, to me, a junior situation or an NHL situation. You could be in the minors, right? And you know that firsthand. But coupled with that is our seminars, right? Our seminars about, you know, we've got John Houghton coming, you know, who is a Navy SEAL, who teaches you, you know, how to handle those really inept situations that are beyond your control. Well, how do you handle it? You know, and he is an amazing person. Just, you know, we could have a whole podcast on him, but, you know, then we have a goaltending session. You know, again, to me, the education portion through a lot of these other showcases to me are missed. And I think that's what we're trying to get to is, you know, really establish the education, the development, and then the competition, right? And I just believe in that. I just think if you can get way more out of the game, because everybody can go rent ice. Like you can put on a showcase, but doing it this way in a very professional manner is really what drew me. And, you know, you talk about education, you talk about development, and you talk about compete. And, you know, depending on the type of person you are, you can probably move those three pieces of the puzzle around whatever way you want. You want the competition first? Yeah, okay. Well, but alongside of that, you need an education, right, of how to handle those intentions. And then you need to develop, right, your workout habits. And that's what John's going to talk about. And, you know, you might talk about the, you know, the mental aspect. So it all kind of fits in there. Where you piece it together, we just offer it, right? Yeah. And we just offer it. And that's, you know, that's truly, to me, why it looked appealing to me when you reached out. And again, I'm like you. I love your philosophy. You're doing it going to Coeur d'Alene. Like, let's be honest. Like, I mean, I don't know whether you want to get into it or not, but we touched on our last phone call. Like, you're doing that. You're not doing the prototypical, big hockey academy. It's new, it's different. Well, and I'm sure there's some butterfly moments, right, throughout the day that you're kind of going, oh, am I doing the right thing? Well, just believe in it, right? If you believe in it, like I said, I believe in this, the UMH, we've still got spots left. So anybody listening, like, I believe in it. And I think what we're putting on and what we're trying to, incorporate are the three best things you can do, which is education, development, and competition. And, hopefully, and we got a great facility. Like, if nobody knows, like, that Keystone Center is such an undervalued piece in, to me, all four provinces. I'm sorry, but it is, it's 3 hockey rinks, it's a hotel, it's, it's crazy. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's super exciting, and I guess what we didn't also say, like, the parents get involved, and again, like, you mentioned that you never played in the NHL. You played pro, but you never played in the NHL. So even for you, there was a little bit of, am I doing the right thing?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, on the daily pods, like, I'm serious. Like, it was. If you ever get a chance to talk to the boys, I mean, they will tell you that I would stay quiet sometimes, Morgan in the AHL and even in the NHL. And I'll just say, like, it's so refreshing to see and hear coaches tell you what I believe in, which is, doing this or doing it this way or whatever. And, even Noah, for that matter, in the game of baseball, like, we still talk, on the daily, but but once every couple months, I ask him some questions. He says, no, it's the same thing as what you taught us. Right. And so,
but
and again,
I'm going to cut in just for a second, because what I'm saying is, so, like, for the moms and dads out there that have even no hockey experience, right, and have a belief system, or maybe don't even know what the belief system is for hockey development or for high performance, right? Like, I do believe that the parents need to be a part of the discussion, especially at the ages that we're talking to kids about, right? We're talking U14, U15 age kids, right? That's who we're serving. They're trying to figure it out, and the parents are trying to figure it out, right? And not that we have this this golden rail roadmap, but here's a structure, right? Here's what we should be thinking about. This should be in your your bandwidth of consideration. Right.
Yeah.
And I think if we can do that, and then this opportunity provides mom and dad to talk with their sons and daughters about what they just heard. How does this apply to us? Right. Like, what can we do with this information? And I guess the thing that excites me about the 68 too is, like, and really, like, the pretense for how the whole thing started with me was, like, this is the age where you're figuring out that you're not just playing hockey anymore, but you want to be a hockey player.
Right.
And I do think that there's a different approach. Like, I think that the game changes and there's a different approach to that. And that's exciting to me. Right. So that whole thing is exciting to me. And, us expanding now into Manitoba, it's a long way away. And we've, with any new endeavor, there's always challenges. But the exciting thing is that however many guys we got right now, 45 or 50 or something, that are excited, ready to go. We do have spots available. So for anyone listening out there, like, this is the 2011 birth year in Manitoba. It really has. I mean, I say this humbly and gratefully, but, like, the events that we've held in British Columbia have been gangbusters, absolute gangbusters. Like, how many spring tournaments has anyone ever been to where you've actually wrote a letter to the coordinator thanking you for that? Like, I've never written one, and I think I'm a pretty grateful guy, right? Like, but, like, over half of the people took the time to say, this was amazing last year. Like, thank you for having us. Like, we want to come back. Like, so, like, that's what we're executing, I guess, here, like, as we move east, right? Like, we want to provide that same experience. We want this to be very different than anything you've ever done. And it will be very different than anything you've ever done. So I know there's, like, hesitation sometimes, and I know there's other things to do, and I know that there's things on the plate, but this truly is an experience that is going to leave your athlete, a better hockey player, a better human, a more connected person, and it's kind of Craig and I's way to show kind of what options are out there and what we should consider. So again, I guess what am I saying here? Yes, there is spots available. The 2011 watch list is the best way to get your name on that.
Yeah.
We're almost like 5 weeks away, so you are getting super close. By the time this episode releases, which is going to be tomorrow, which is the 29th, we essentially have 5 to 7 days before we have to shut off registration. So if you do hear this, or if you know of somebody in Manitoba and you're not in Manitoba or Saskatchewan, by the way,
Saskatchewan,
yeah, we open it up to Saskatchewan, and that's a new audience for us because, as Craig's point, we were a little bit late in the game in getting the idea out and the concept out, and Manitoba isn't a huge province to begin with trillions of hockey players of the level that we're speaking to. So we opened that up to the players of Saskatchewan as well in 2011. So if you are in either one of those provinces and want to compete, by all means, let us know. We would be happy to have you, and I'll be there in person there on the 29th, and we'll be making sure we're delivering a good product.
Right. Yeah, well, that's good, Pods. And like I said, I'm stoked for it. Really, really excited, and can't wait to meet everybody because there's so many, names on spreadsheets and phone numbers and texts and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it's finally. I'm really excited to kind of put names or put faces to names, I guess. And
that is a big part of it. And that's a big part of it for me. Like, you establish little micro relationships even through the invitation process, which can be, as a bit exhausting. But it is about it's about connecting with people, and people need to trust me. They need to trust you. That that their time is going to be well spent. That their hard-earned money is going to be well spent. And that we're going to provide something. So I do think that that's just part of it too, right? Especially as we're growing it, they need to believe in who's behind it. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on too as well. I know your perspective is great there. I wanted to let people have an opportunity to get to know you. And yeah, we're at that hour mark. I know we could talk forever, and we should talk about your boys more. But for anyone who hasn't listened, Connor came on as a young teenager, just finished being drafted, I believe is when we had him on.
Yeah.
And he did a fantastic job. Connor's interview I really enjoyed. I have not had a chance to talk to Morgan yet, but Craig said that we might be able to tee that up. So maybe we'll have them on and Morgan can speak to himself, because he just had an absolute career year at a crazy time. And Connor's just trying to break that bubble of getting into the NHL as a full-time regular after his first year of pro. So actually it might be a good time to have Connor back on again too. Let's see if he's interested. But yeah, I love what you're doing there, buddy. I it's so much fun following your kids and seeing the success that they're having, and your transparency with what you believe in, and that whatever. There's good, bad, and ugly with all of it, right? And
there truly is. And again, your listeners can agree, disagree, roll their eyes, or do whatever, but there is no one set path, and there is no right or wrong way. And all I'm saying is, as long as they're good people and good hard workers and manage their time, and honestly, don't get too high, all right, or low for that matter, which is part of the mental side of things. And again, tough to do in a high end sport like hockey. So
yeah, no kidding. Well, thanks for checking in. I know you got a busy day there. I'll let you go. We'll get this posted tomorrow. And for everyone out there, thanks so much for listening. And again, hopefully we'll see you, or if not you, maybe a relative or a nephew or somebody like that at the event. And by all means, if you are in Brandon or anywhere near there, May 29th to June 1st, it's so cool when people just come out and support. Like, we're talking really good hockey, like high level hockey. The games are fantastic, and the more people there to appreciate it, the better. So come out and say hi and shake our hands. We'd love to meet you.
You betcha. Thanks, Pods.
Thanks, Craig. All right, thank you for listening to the entire episode with Craig. Awesome to have him on. One of the things I do love about the UMH 68 is that I get to talk to Hugh Hamilton and Craig Geeky, two of my former teammates, on a somewhat consistent basis as we forge ahead with these events. They are the guys on the ground that are making it happen in their respective provinces, and it's a lot of fun to reconnect with old teammates. So thank you, Craig, for coming on. I hope you enjoyed the discussion today, just around the philosophy, around the down-to-earth, authentic approach to just participating. Go out there and participate in life. The more often you can do that, the more engaged you can be as an athlete, the more willing you are to say no to things, which means saying yes to new experiences and new opportunities, the better. I do believe that changes, as kids mature and as they age and as they go through puberty and as they find what they want to do, then, that we will tighten our sight lines on what it is that is important and what it is that is necessary. But do not underestimate the value of rest. And I don't mean rest in the sense of lying on the couch. I mean rest with your skates off. Being on the golf course instead of being on the ice, being on the tennis court instead of being on the ice, being on a mountain bike instead of being on the ice. Like, all these things are super helpful to your hockey. Being out, being involved, being engaged, being an athlete is something that all young people should be doing. And not only, we didn't talk about it much in the episode, but it does give yourself a mental break, a brain break, and allows the brain to grow some of the myelinations and some of the connections that it can't otherwise. So we get an emotional letdown. We get to breathe. We get to look forward to something. We get to be more grateful about the opportunities to play hockey when they are presented to us again. So I'm not saying taking the whole summer off ever. I do understand that, hey, we have to get ready for camps. I mean, that's why I offer my own camps, as I talked about in the program there, that, I get back on the ice starting in August, start skating, start getting your reps in there. Definitely don't stay out of the gym, don't stay off the field, don't stay off the track. These are all different things. But as far as ice is concerned, get back in August, take some time off in July, hopefully most of June or some of June, you can take some time off too. And like I said, be an athlete, be a kid, be engaged in life, be curious. And the best we can do to support that as parents is beneficial as well. So that's my rant for the day. Hockey's amazing, but it doesn't have to be hockey all the time. If we believe in the process of just development, the process of being curious about life and curious about just getting better in general, the hockey will take care of itself, I promise you. So until next time, this is Jason Padolin. Play hard and keep your head up.